Hello and welcome to The Lab, a Minecraft podcast where we explore, experiment, and theorize about all things Minecraft. I am Minor Thoughts, and with me is my co-host, my brother from down under, the Troj. And he's brought a guest with him. Why do you introduce your guest? Special guest.
I will. And hello, Mr. Minor Thoughts. How you doing today?
I'm not working, and that's good.
And I am in under an hour, so that's not so good. But with me today, we sort of might take a little detour off Minecraft, sorta a little bit today. But with me is someone I like to call a friend and a special guest today, Andrew from Covyne Entertainment. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the podcast, guys.
Absolute pleasure. Now, to give some context about who you are, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name's Andrew. I'm from a company called Covyne Entertainment. Well, not really a company. We're an indie studio in Melbourne. And been working on games for I've been working on games for a very long time, but nothing serious until the last probably 4 or 5 years. And we just released our first sort of commercial game, I guess, called Dolven.
And can I say, so I first met you and discovered Dolven at the Game Expo in March of this year down in Melbourne. And basically fell in love with that game almost instantly. And I have very much lost a lot of sleep to it in the past 2 weeks since release. Yes, I was saying before the episode started, before we started recording, that it's just one of those games that if you're going to play it, you just need to be aware. Probably don't start playing it at like 10:30 at night because it is very much, I'll just do another room. I'll just do another one. I'll just do another one. It's very addictive.
Like I was saying at the beginning, or before we started the episode, is I've seen the game, so I'm familiar with it. But what is Dolven? What kind of game is it?
Yeah.
Explain it a little bit.
Sure. So, I mean, to sum it up, basically, it's a tactical RPG where you're playing cards. That's kind of the tagline. But it is kind of a lot more deeper than that. So, think of moving your heroes around in a grid, and then buffing them with cards. Now, there are games out there that kind of do that. So you can think of games like Slay the Spire.
Yes, which I like that one.
Yeah. So that's kind of in fact, I didn't even know that game existed when I started making Dolven. In fact, I didn't even know there was a whole card deck building genre of gaming at all. I didn't even know, and because to step back, a little bit earlier, I've always loved card games when I was younger, and we can talk about that later. And I've always obviously loved PC games, and I sort of thought, well, let's just put two of them together. And then I discovered there's this whole kind of genre of card sort of games. But basically, I guess the differentiator in Dolven, with respect to sort of other games in the genre, is that you're actually playing a game of cards against another boss. So you're sort of moving these characters around the grid, and you're playing this game of almost like poker, where you're matching cards, and it's giving you more benefits and rewards to continue playing cards. So it's kind of it's sort of it's almost like a cross between sort of Baldur's Gate, Magic the Gathering, and I guess poker sort of thing. So
yeah, actually, now that you mentioned that, poker was one thing that sort of, with the suits and the number matching and all that sort of stuff, it was like, this I got it, because I've played poker in the past, like tournaments and that, and it's like that feels very pokerish. So yeah, definitely. I highly recommend the game. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're betting money or anything like that. So there's not sort of, you're not going to lose your house, but it's got that sort of feel to it where, by making combinations of cards, you kind of get a reward, which you don't really see in any other game. It sort of drives you to I guess, create more interesting strategies. Yeah.
Awesome. Mine, are you sold yet?
Well, okay. I do have to be honest that lately some of my favorite games to play are either, I guess they call them roguelite or roguelite,
Yeah.
or card games like Balatro, Slay the Spire, you mentioned. Another one I really, really love is called Menace from the Deep, and it's got kind of a Lovecraft feel to it.
Okay.
Like with Balatro, it's got that poker feel to it, but also cards that do certain things to increase your score.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your game. I'm definitely going to play it. I think I'm really starting to get intrigued. What makes it different, from
Mm,
some of these others, besides
yeah.
the strategy, the movement on the
Yeah.
board?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to it. I mean, you did mention roguelite, so you can. I mean, it's not a kind of. I wouldn't sort of stereotype it as a roguelike, but the game, you are going through a dungeon and you are building up your characters,
Mm-hmm.
so there is that aspect to it as well. So, and it does go quite deep. So, obviously we've only got 45 minutes here, but I'll try and sum up as much as I can. So. But essentially, there's the game sort of there's the hands, making of the hands, which I've sort of talked about already. There's also a whole sort of what we call basically a triad, and essentially what that means is that you've got three archetypes of character. You've got an intellect character, and that's your mage and your cleric. You've got a strength archetype, and that is your guardian and your warrior. And then you've got a dexterity archetype, and that is your archer and your rogue. Now, each of those also have are the suits in the game, right? So you've in the card game. So you have intellect cards that do buffs and debuffs against intellect characters. And you have strength archetype characters, and they respond well to the strength suit. So there's sort of that synergy between the suits as well as the archetypes of the characters. So that's one aspect of it. And depending on the sort of dungeon that you're in, some suits do better than others. So, for example, in the forest scene, there's essentially 4 different biomes. In the forest biome, if you play a lot of strength cards and have a lot of strength characters, so if you have a guardian and a warrior, for example, in the forest area, you're going to do really well because dexterity actually beats strength actually beats dexterity. So there's like this sort of paper scissors rock thing. I'm going on a big deep tangent here, but this is one of the tangents. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to explain, but essentially there's this kind of triad, and the idea is that intellect characters will beat strength characters will beat dexterity characters, and dexterity characters will beat intellect characters. So there's this sort of, you got to be careful about where you place your cards. You got to be careful about who you attack as well, because you might be attacking a class or an archetype that's not quite as or is stronger than you, and therefore the damage you do and the damage you receive, will be different depending on what you attack. So I guess we kind of tried to make the game easy to start, but if you want to get right into the numbers, including there's gear that affects this as well. So as you're going through the dungeon, you're picking up gear. There's over 1,000 items in the dungeon that you can pick up. And that all affects your characters as well. So it's just kind of, I mean, I'm a big fan of old school RPGs like Baldur's Gate and Divinity Original Sin, things like that. And I just love picking up gear and trying to make my characters strong enough to be able to beat the next boss or whatever it was. And that's definitely part of it. So yeah.
Are there cards that you can? I know a lot of the battlers have cards where you can add to your deck, kind of buff up your deck.
Yeah, so essentially, as you're going through the dungeon, you'll meet he's actually a blacksmith, and he's part of the story. There's a whole narrative as well. So wow. There's a story. There's a big storyline, and that sort of plays out as you're going through. There's 6 different endings as well.
Oh.
And so you'll meet these. Basically, you end up in a room where you've got a chest that you can open, and in that chest there'll be cards. So you get to select one of the cards, and then you can add that to your deck, and you can save and load decks, and you might decide that you might use a particular deck in a certain dungeon versus another one. So yes, there is that aspect of deck building as you're going through the dungeons as well. So yeah, a lot in there.
Yeah, wow. I think you have me sold. Yeah, I'm going to put it in the checkout section of Steam.
All right, we're getting there. We're slowly getting down the funnel.
Because I'm really noticing that card battlers, games that involve cards are really becoming popular. I played some of the tabletop games, like I don't know if you've heard of Dominion.
Yes, I have.
Where you're building a deck to do different things. Yeah, and like in the role playing, Darrington Press just came out with Daggerheart, which uses a kind of a card system where you can swap cards in and out to do different things. So yeah, it's I'm sold. I'm sold.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting you raise that point. I have noticed that as well. A lot of games are coming out with these sort of card kind of aspects to them, and I don't know where it comes on, to be honest. I mean, from my perspective, when I was a kid, we used to have a what's it called, holiday house down in Port Phillip Bay, which is kind of in Victoria, in Australia, obviously. And we'd go down there, and there was nothing else to do except play. I mean, you go to the beach, obviously, and jump around, come back. And what you'd do is you'd play, games of cards, or you'd play, board games. And we used to play heaps of games, Jim Rummy and Hearts and 500 and all these different games. Loved it, absolutely loved it. And it's a community thing as well. When you're playing with someone, I play poker with my friends quite often on the weekends. Nothing serious. We don't sell the house or anything like that. It's it's all just bit of fun. But we'll be playing. We'll be talking for half an hour, and then we'll realise, whose go is it? It's like you sort of it's this sort of community aspect to it as well, which I think is really part of the fun, and I think that's where I got the sort of inspiration, I guess, for Dolven, is through that sort of realm of playing those cards, and then also playing way too many turn-based strategy games, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing that really jumped out at me, because I grew up with Command and Conquer, Red Alert, all those sort of games, Tiberian Sun, and that I know, like, that's the strategy side. Just I fall in love with the strategy side. Yeah. And then, I remember first seeing, I think my son, I was playing your game at TGX, and I was sort of watching him, and it didn't grab me initially, but then the more I watched him, it was like, hang on, there's strategy to this. And then it was like, hang on a minute. And then the hook got in real quick. That was like, righto, let's get into this. This is good. And I think go ahead. I was going to say, the one thing I think that I noticed was both at PAX, at TGX and at PAX recently, is your area in the indie games was one of, if not the most consistently busy the entire show. And I think that really said something.
Yeah, like it was. We had a fantastic PAX and TGX. It's been really incredible. And yeah, the machines were always occupied, which is fantastic. What you want to do. It is actually the most difficult part of game development from an indie perspective, though, is getting people to notice your game and actually realize that you exist. Because I found that people who jump on there and have a go actually like it, but getting them to have a go, that's the hard bit.
Oh yeah.
Well, look, I want to get it to the listeners. This is not a sales pitch, but definitely go check out Dolven. Great game, very, very enjoyable, and you will lose countless hours of sleep to it by just doing just one more room.
Well, there's also a demo. So if you're going to jump on there, it's the first 3 rooms. You can download it and play that. So and see if you like it.
Sounds great to me. But I know people might be wondering, why we got someone that's not related to Minecraft on a Minecraft podcast? There is a reason, folks. I assure you of this. Now, the listeners will definitely know, Minecraft development has gone through a lot of changes in the recent years, really going back to 1.18 when they split the update into two different parts, and there was a bit of uproar about that with, Mojang's not delivering what they promised, the developers are lazy, mod makers can do better than this. What we thought would be a great idea is to get Andrew on and give a little bit of an insight into the actual game development process, because Miner and I don't make games. We've sort of put up for Mojang and said, well, it's not that easy. There's so many other things they've got to take into account. But we thought Andrew would actually be a really, really good insight into what it takes to make a game on a commercial level, as opposed to making a mod for a game that already exists. So you sort of mentioned where you got the inspiration from for Dolven, but where does it start? When you go, right, I want to make a game.
Yeah.
Where does it start?
Yeah, so I can sort of talk, I guess, in two different capacities. So I've obviously been an indie developer, I guess professional indie developer for a very short time. It's only been, I'd say, about 5 years. I've been making games before then. I've released a few free games here and there, but nothing serious. And I think the second capacity I can talk in is that I have been working in, quite large corporations as well. Indie game development, unfortunately, doesn't make a hell of a lot of money. And so if you want to have a house and you want a roof over your head, and you want to be able to put dinner on the table, you make your money elsewhere, unless you hit it big, right? Which very few do. But anyway, and so I guess, talking from that perspective, if you're sort of starting out as an indie developer, you actually do have a lot of freedom, and you kind of have time to kind of figure things out. You have time to learn. You have time to, test things in the market, and it's a little bit, it's quite. If I had to say, it's probably the easiest part of it is that first beginning the idea. And, you've got to iterate the idea, and if it's not great, you've got to figure out why, and you have that freedom of time before the deadline comes in. Now, if you're working for a corporation, if you've got stakeholders that are coming in and giving you lots of money to do things, everything changes then. So you'll be given a sort of rough, you'll give a rough estimate of how long it's going to take to do things. And your stakeholders, as much as you want to tell them it's an estimate, they will take it as a deadline, right? Now, they won't say it's a deadline, but they will say, oh, well, let's try and get it to this point, and let's cut these things out. Let's remove these things so that we can release at this particular time, so that they can get what they call value from, early value from their investment. Now, I mean, one company that always did well, that I don't think do well anymore, but did do well, was Blizzard Entertainment, for example. Back in the day when I was young, they wouldn't have deadlines. They would release it when it's ready. That was their kind of motto, I guess, and everyone knew that. And you'd be waiting, 5-6 years between games. Which was quite long back then. It seems to be longer now, but and so you've got this pressure of stakeholders coming down on you, and they want to be kept informed the whole way through. So it's not as if you get to change something and stick it straight out to the customers and then test the market, because they will see that as a brand risk. That if you let the developers do what they want to do and just release stuff, they might, you might end up on front page news because, you've now released a security vulnerability that, means that people's, credit cards are being stolen or whatever, their personal information is being, they can't afford to do that because it's a massive brand risk. And that's what it all comes down to, is this kind of, battle between developers, and stakeholders, usually, people who are giving developers a lot of money, and the brand, and making sure that what you release is high quality, that it's secure, that it's on time, that it's under budget. All of those things build pressure on having to release something that's it builds pressure on it, and eventually just means that you're going to release stuff a lot slower compared to someone who's, I guess, just making a mod. And mods, when I say just making a mod, mods are difficult. I wouldn't take anything away from that. But they're just not under the same sort of, I guess, pressures as I've mentioned.
I guess too, the one thing that we've mentioned on the podcast about the mods, and obviously particularly Minecraft, is they don't need to take into account longer term vision of where Minecraft's going. They just take it as the game is right now and go, right, we're going to cram this in to the existing ecosystem. As opposed to, no doubt Mojang would have like a long list of months, if not years, roadmap in mind that whatever they adding and doing now is going to impact down the line, where mod makers don't need to consider that at all.
Yeah. And that's right. There's a lot of different disciplines as well that you've got to think about as well. So you've got, as you're sort of saying, you've got this sort of long roadmap of where things are going to go. That's going to inform architecture, right? So, I mean, if you're going to do some crazy new networking, massively multiplayer section of the game, you're going to have to architect that correctly. You're going to have to think about, all of the different systems and components that go into it. And you'll have to start that early. And you can't do anything that's going to be, that's going to, compromise that in the future. But even just having that roadmap means that, you've got to go and talk to architects. Now, you've got to have architects on the team. You've got to have your testers on the team. You have business analysts that go around and, find out whether this is going to be good for value, going forward. You'll have project managers. It will just go on and on and on. All this, a bunch of different disciplines, and each one of those will make a decision, and you've got to navigate through all that. Whereas, if you're making a mod, you don't really need those, and that's why it takes so long. You're sort of making sure that everyone gets a finger in the pie. And to be honest, this is why I think a lot of these large corporations, they end up, delivering stuff quite late and perhaps not exactly what you expected, because they don't really have that freedom. Now, with that freedom, of course, as a smaller company, it does get very difficult because now you got three hats on. You got the architect hat, got the tester's hat, you've got the business hat, and then you just you don't get to sleep, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think about games like Hello Games and No Man's Sky, where it was they almost overpromised and underdelivered, and eventually they got there. But
they did.
But other games that have we were talking about roadmaps is like Phasmophobia, games like Enshrouded that release what they've got planned for the future, whereas Mojang, what you get is like, okay, wasn't expecting that, but we'll take it, because it's still a free game. The updates and drops are still free. A question for you: do you have, like, for Dolven, do you have a roadmap in mind, and would you kind of keep that under wraps, or in case you can deliver, or would you kind of release those, this is what's planned in the future for Dolven, whether it's DLC or, how do you feel about those types of things?
Yeah, I know. I do like the idea of getting the roadmap out there early. In fact, it's kind of the first point of feedback that you can get really from what you're thinking, down the track. I'm not sure if it makes sense from a large corporation point of view, but certainly from an indie game development, if you've got the community there, which we do with Discord and everything, we often put in little recently because we've been, releasing the game, but we often put little polls in where, what's the next feature you want to see, and inevitably everybody clicks the multiplayer button. But apart from that, I also talk to people. And I think this has been where Dolven's been quite successful. Is I go and face to face talk to people. I go to a lot of meetups. I go to a lot of conferences. Pretty much every conference that's on in Melbourne, we make sure we attend, or if not, display Dolven there as an exhibitor. And I'll talk to them and say, we're thinking about doing this, and this. We're going to have new card packs, and we're going to make a little PvP room, hopefully. And what do you think about putting new characters in the game, new classes, new decks, those sort of things. And I really do kind of value that early feedback, and I think that's why I want to make sure that I get that sort of, even just talking about it to people, and then getting their reactions and going, yes, no, people are interested in that. They're a bit, who kind of cares about this or that. There are things that you have to do, so there will be bugs that come up inevitably in any game, and so you have to make sure you fix those. But broadly, I think for Dolven, certainly. I want to. We're just putting in a new save load system at the moment. That's been asked. A few people have said I want to save my game because at the moment it automatically saves all the way through, and you can go back to different quests, but you can't save at a point in time. And so we're putting that in. And everybody's asking about PvP. Now I will kind of. I will say that I have got what we call a branch that's beginning of that, but it's still very early days, and probably probably 4 to 6 months away would be my guess. But it is something we want to do now. From a sort of I guess broad horizon view, Dolven is actually the second game in a series of 3 games. So you kind of the story itself, it's a bit like it's the Empire Strikes Back of the Star Wars saga. It's the second one we made, and it's got a full story for both the part 1 and part 3 that we haven't done yet. And so, I'd love to get those 3 out, but again, that's years down the track.
Wow, okay, I did not know that. Now I'm curious, and we may have a different conversation later. But I think touching on like the whole roadmappy thing, I think Mojang really changed the way they did it with the 1.18 update, because they did put out, this is everything we want to achieve. This is what we're thinking of doing, and it got too much for one update, and obviously it was taking time. Like they were changing the entire way the world generated, which is not exactly a small task. Like that's a massive project. So what they ended up doing is they split it into world generation and then all the other bits and pieces. But what happened is some of the stuff fell by the wayside, and it's probably something going back to what you said. It's like, well, we have to cut this out for time saving, and the community just went nuts. Like I've never seen anything like it. Really, Minor, with Minecraft, it went crazy with we're not getting this. They're promising this, and we're not getting it. Longer term, I think we actually got it we got all of it, but then more. So they just the bits that they didn't add in at that time have snuck their way into future updates.
Yeah. I think there's 2 things I'm thinking about there. Is one, I'm surprised that there was sort of a goal of putting in a larger update than what they could actually deliver. Because again, that sounds like it's more of developer led. Developers quite often underestimate everything. It's like you take a developer's estimate and you double it. Like you have to double it, because it is sort of it's sort of it's thought-based work, and so it's like you don't go to a brain surgeon and say, hey, when are you going to be finished? It's like, no, just take your time, do what you got to do. I don't care how long it's going to take. Just make sure it's great. So not that developing is like brain surgery, although it is pretty bloody complex. You have to sort of look at, what is it that the goal is, and then you really need to scale that back. So I'm surprised that they sort of didn't break it down into smaller parts, because that's how you get through it. And then, the second thing, I guess, is, as you were mentioning, there would be that pressure of the stakeholders coming in saying, "Hey guys, we're paying you a bit of money here. When are we getting our stuff?"
And when that stakeholder is more than likely Microsoft,
Exactly.
probably multiply that pressure by 1,000.
And they'll want to make sure that whatever they're doing is going to increase sales of the game, and that more player base, more people playing it, and more they'll have targets. It'll be like I think I saw I was watching something on YouTube the other day, and it was I think for their new gaming division in Microsoft, they want I think it's a 30% margin on things, and that's crazy. Like that's huge, So you can imagine the internal pressure.
Oh, most certainly. And they did change their approach after this, because there were some of the developers were quite active on social media and engaging with with people like us, etc. But they really, really pulled back at that time. But they also changed their approach. They then said, basically, well, we're not telling you what we're working on. We're going to give you little tiny bits of information. And instead of doing like one or two big, what's the word I'm looking for? Updates a year, we're now going to give you 4 to 6 small, tiny ones. And they just sort of drop stuff on us almost constantly now. Where they've sort of gone too far the other way, I think. It's just a constant stream of new stuff. And you can't, particularly like a server like Interrealms, we've got 40, 50 people that actively play, and you're running a server, which is not a small server, and you've got to keep delivering the new stuff. It's a lot of work.
Well, I think you've touched on a point there, which is interesting, and that is that I actually don't mind frequent updates, and I think from a engineering perspective, it makes 100% sense, because the bigger the change you put in there, the more chance things are going to go wrong, or you're going to disappoint your community. Whereas I think probably the scale back on comms might be the issue here, where they're sort of throwing these things into the game where you were surprised that it sort of came in there. If perhaps their comms were better and they tested this with people and said, hey, we're going to put this in, and everyone put the thumbs down, or everyone's like really excited about it, then I think this is why I'm a big fan of them. I'm a big fan of getting that early feedback, making sure that it'll cost you $100,000 to build something out for the next year, or you just go out there and say, hey guys, is this cool? And then if they say no, it's like, oh, I just saved myself $100,000. It's like, get that feedback nice and early. It sounds like they're not doing that. And again, that could be internal pressures as well. They don't want to reveal the forward roadmap. I don't know the reason. I could only speculate as to why. But I would, if I was there, which I'm not, obviously, I would be trying to get the feedback as early as I can from even just a subset of people out there that you trust, to try and get that early feedback and pivot if you need to.
I guess in their defense a little bit, and I guess a little bit more clarification. So what they'll do is they release what they call snapshots.
Yeah.
And those snapshots are little bits of the next drop or the next update that they're going to give you. Yeah. And they do respond to the feedback that they get and take some of the changes into mind, et cetera, et cetera. But it's constant. So like they will just release. So basically they just released, what was the last update, Miner? I can't even remember. The Copper Age, they called it.
Yes.
So they've literally just dropped it. And the very next week, we're getting a snapshot for the next drop, which comes out before the end of the year.
So the feedback cycle's not long enough, perhaps.
Well,
is that what it is?
Potentially. But one thing that comes up to us is we've got a very diverse membership base with Interrealms. Yeah. And there's a few people in there that they don't like change. And they struggle with that constant change. And even, I've got to admit, even myself, like I love Minecraft and I love building and I like being creative in that. But trying to keep up with everything new that they're adding, like I think I'm still 1 or 2 updates behind just playing with the new stuff. Then all of a sudden we're getting new stuff on top of the new stuff. it can be overwhelming for people. And it's just, I'm seeing that comment starting to come up is in our community, but elsewhere it's like, there's too much. It's like, can we go back to 2 big updates a year sort of thing? So it's interesting to see that change, even in the mentality now of the community, where they were going, it's too much, you've overpromised, you guys suck, to it's too small, there's too much, you suck. Like
the pendulum swung the other way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because we have such diverse group, from people that build to also, people like Troj, the server administrators, where it's like 4 different drops, 4 different updates to the game throughout the year. And, you have a small group that, I want the new blocks, I want the new things to play with. And they're like, it's a big ordeal to update server every time, because it's not just, you're doing it for one person, you're doing it for a whole community.
Yeah.
And I guess too, a great example of that was this Copper Age update. And this update introduced a whole lot of changes to the way the copper block and the copper items worked in the game. So I don't know how familiar you are with Minecraft, but the copper blocks would oxidize over time and change color. And you can wax them at a certain stage to keep them at that particular appearance. But up until this update, the only copper items that did that were the actual blocks, not lightning rods. And we've got one person on the server called Chemist who's doing we say he's overcompensating for something, but he's doing like a mega base. It's like well over 1 million blocks just on the outside. But the majority of it is copper. And there was something like, where he's up to on the build at the moment, 10,000 copper lightning rods. So we've come out and said we're going to update, because people are saying we want the new stuff for Christmas builds. We want to use the new stuff. And he's come out and said, well, I've been working on this for 2.5 years, from both planning and starting to build. Now I've got to go and wax 10,000 lightning rods, and it's like, where do you find the balance between the two, trying to give people what they want to do to keep using the new stuff and the impacts that it's having on existing builds? It's you got to find we found a workaround by some admin magic and using tools to world edit his build to replace the blocks with the waxed ones, but it's like, it was an insight I wasn't expecting as a server administrator. Was you got such that big disparity between the two sides that they want it and then they don't. It was
that's
interesting to go through.
I think that would be, if I was in your shoes, that would be the hardest thing about being a game developer, is you just can't please everybody.
Exactly. That's exactly right. No, it's 100%. And like the way, when I get into those positions where it's like, you've got pretty much half of the customer base saying yes and half of them saying no. When I get into those positions, I kind of get really selfish, and I think, well, what would I like? What would I like to play? How would I've made this game. It's fun. I'm having fun doing it. What's the next fun thing that I would actually really like to do? And it is kind of flipping a coin a little bit, but again, you can't. I mean, I'm just getting back to what you're sort of saying around this. This particular copper update. Again, I feel as though that's not listening to your audience for understanding what they're actually doing, because they should know, right, that there's the possibility that some guys made this massive, this massive base with all this copper, and he's going to be majorly affected here. I sort of feel as though perhaps, maybe they're not doing as, because one of the things also that I've noticed over the years, and something that a lot of inexperienced developers do, is they jump in there and just start building stuff and then getting it out there. And I'm not saying Mojang's inexperienced. Obviously I don't really know how the internals go. I'm talking more from a broad perspective, that inexperienced developers will jump in there and start coding and building stuff. The experienced ones will sit back, they'll do design, they'll understand their audience. They will, build up an architecture, and this will be, it'll be, 80% thinking and 20% actually coding. And so that's I guess a bit more of an insight into I guess, a way that you can try and take into account your audience, understand what they really want, what drives them, measure their behavior as well, which is a key thing. People say one thing, but they do another. And so understanding, how people are playing the game, what they're actually doing in the game is also really important. It just sounds in that particular example that perhaps they didn't, they didn't actually take that into account.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the only times I can think of where they've actually introduced an update that leads to an existing block placed changing.
Right.
With the lightning rod in particular. And that's, it's a tiny little thing. And I think it might be easy to say, well, they're only designed to obviously attract lightning and blah, 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 various farms and whatever. But it's a block that gets used a lot for the small details in builds. And I can imagine it wasn't just chemists. Like, I know I've got, I've just realized I'm doing it. My base at the moment is about 1 million blocks, but that'll be about where it'll stay. I've just realized on top of one of my Parthenons, there's a whole heap of copper things I'm going to have to go and fix. I didn't realize that until this moment. But there would be many, many builds and worlds out there that people are now going to have to go back and fix that because they've now got an existing block which changed, which is probably a good point that I hadn't thought of, is they haven't actually considered the impact. Like, I think as a whole, this update was well received by the community because it did go through, particularly one part of it. The copper golems went through a lot of feedback and a lot of changes. But yeah, that impact of the lightning rod is probably a bigger thing than a lot of people realized.
I like games to where, like, if you're playing it, you're really enjoying it. But some new feature or something has changed slightly to where you're like, oh, I don't like that. But I really enjoy the game. I like when a developer will have as a toggle. You can play with it on or play with it off.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's actually a really good way. And another thing that I was thinking about, I'm not sure. I played Minecraft when it first came out, so that's how old I am. But and I'm not sure if they do now. But do they have a concept of kind of like a test realm where you can go in there and try these things out before it goes into the main sort of game?
Not as such. They do the snapshot, so you can download the snapshot world, a file. Game version, and then you can run it on your own machine and play it. They do generally listen to the feedback from it, but it just seems like, and maybe that's something that no one thought of, the impact that lightning rod change was going to have. Because I can't think of anything in recent times, because I've only been playing Minecraft since 2020, since COVID times. But in that time, the last 5 years, I cannot think of an update that impacted an existing place block like this one has.
I can't
think of anything. No. So yeah, interesting, that one.
Yeah. It is interesting, and I think we used to quite often. I worked for Australia's largest polluter at one point, and we used to have these what if sessions, and I wonder if they do that sort of thing as well, where we would, before we even started building whatever it is what we were building at the time, we would say we'd have these couple of meetings a week around what if we put this thing in here, what's going to happen, and I wonder if they do that sort of a session as well, where they go, what if we change this particular aspect of Minecraft, what's it going to impact? And they were really, really helpful because we realized a lot of oh crap moments where it was like, if we had have changed that, we would be right up the creek without a paddle. And so I think that can be certainly helpful.
Right. And then another thing is you're developing Dolven just for PC, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Whereas Mojang, they have to consider consoles and mobile and all those other things. I do have
two different versions.
Right. I do have
Java
one
and Bedrock.
Is it Steam Deck verified?
Dolven, not yet, but we have played it on the Steam Deck, so it's compatible. But that is again on the roadmap, that one. So
okay.
And it's another one that people have been asking for. Is it on Steam Deck? Because it's actually would be. I have played it on Steam Deck. There's a few little things we just need to sort out. But it's very close to being sort of compatible. But one thing sort of people have said is, I'd love to be able to sit on my couch and just play this and have a cup of tea there, and because one of those games where you can do a little move, walk away, put yourself in a bunny suit like the Troj does on his stream, and then come back and do your next move. It's not a it's not one of those ones where it's I guess it's not it's pretty much as far from an FPS action game that you can get. So
well, Andrew, thank you very much for your time this morning on the podcast. I think it's been a really interesting peek behind the curtain. Obviously we got to speak about Dolven as well, which is another game I absolutely have fallen in love with. But it was good to get that
in my shopping cart. So
we'll press buy. Press buy now.
I did. Well, it's in the shopping cart. I've actually got Steam pulled up while we were speaking.
Well, that's commitment.
That is how convinced I am. So
yeah, good job. But no, we've appreciated it. I think it's been a really good peek behind the curtain. But if people want to track you down or they want to learn more about the game, where would be the best place to go for that?
Yeah, so just the Steam page. If you just jump on Steam and type Dolven, we've got all of our kind of links there. We do have a Discord as well, so you can get to that from the Steam page. And in that Discord, we discuss new aspects of the game. We announce all our releases, and including new games that we're working on. And so that's probably, if you want sort of direct access to the developers and people working on the game, Discord's probably the best place.
And Miner, if people want to find us, what do they do?
There are many different ways you can contact us, speak to us. You can do it on the Interrealms SMP Discord. Talk to us. There's always one of us there in chat. You could send us a private email at minecraftlabpodcast@gmail.com. Talk to us on the socials. On Twitter X, we are at mclab_podcast. On Blue Sky, we are at LabMCPodcast. And then on the website, the interrealmssmp.com website, there are links for the podcast, all the podcasts in the Interrealms Network, and all the episodes are there, as well as links to all of our streams and other socials and whatnot. How'd I do?
Good job. Well done. You got there eventually.
Awesome.
No, Andrew, once again, thanks for taking your time out of your Sunday morning to have a chat to us. I'm sure the community will absolutely love it. And if we get any other questions or anything to direct to you, we will pass them on through to you.
Yeah. Thank you, and thanks a lot, guys, for having me on the podcast. It's really great.
An absolute pleasure.
Yes, Barry. Thank you for coming on.
This has been a production of the Interrealms Podcast Network. For more information, go to podcast.interrealmssmp.com. You can see the full link in the description of this episode. Thank you for listening.
And Miner, if people want to find us, what do they do?
You have to either fly to Australia or...
no, you muppet.
Yeah, come to Australia. It's all good.
Oh, wow. In case you missed it, that was the segue for the outro. I didn't think it was that subtle, but apparently.
I almost forgot.